Hello, everyone. This is Eric Weiss, and this is Ask a Chief Product Officer, where I take a lot of the common questions and failure patterns that I see in my consulting practice and try to answer them succinctly in a few minutes. The topic I'm going to cover today is what is Agile product management? I come from an engineering background, and so I long ago drank the Kool-Aid about Agile software development. And I've been leading effective Agile development teams for almost 15 years now. And there was always this one challenge that we would face in engineering, which is when the business, either the product management team or the sales organization, would try to drive engineering in a way that wasn't in line with the Agile principles, and we always suffered because of it. And so when I got into running a startup, and I had the opportunity to change things and do things differently, I brought the product management organization along with me, and we developed a number of principles to drive product management similarly in an agile fashion. And so that's really the core philosophy that I bring to all my clients, and I'm going to share with you what that looks like. So there are four main tenets or principles to Agile product management. One is that it's user-centric, it's data-driven, it's a tightly integrated process, and we focus on the least cost to validate. Okay, so let me go into some detail. So first, it's user-centric, which means that as product managers, our primary goal is to understand and create empathy for our users, understand deeply the problems that they're facing, and collaboratively build solutions with them and involve them in every step of the process, and make sure that the user voice speaks the loudest, meaning that we are doing everything we can to gather user feedback, to engage users in the process, to iterate quickly, to put features out there, test them, test their efficacy, and either improve them or discard them. Two, it's data-driven. So we try as much as possible to get our opinions out of the room. There's a concept called HIPPOs, so highly paid people's opinions. A lot of times there are, very aggressive or let's just say opinionated founders, or maybe salespeople, or even your biggest clients that really try to have an outsized voice in driving the product strategy, and that doesn't scale, and eventually you will run into roadblocks there. And so from the very beginning, we want to take a data-driven approach to try to understand the questions we may have about whether or not the product or the features are viable. So we want to collect qualitative and quantitative data, surveys, interviews, collect event data within our application, and then run analytics and reports against those. A/B split testing, and really try to answer definitively whatever the question is that you may have, and not have it be based on a hunch. Meaning, if you're in the room and you're trying to determine how to flesh out a product or which features are higher priority, and you get to a roadblock where multiple people are just sort of arguing based off of their own opinion or their own biases, you sort of pause there and say, okay, how can we test this? How can we create an experiment that will validate one path or the other? Again, A/B testing, surveying, what have you. It's a tightly integrated process, meaning product, engineering, and the customers are all working together in a seamless flow. So there are no silos, there's no barriers, there's no communication gaps between any one of these critical groups, and ideally the entire organization. So how we do that is, we value first, again, making a user-centric product development process. So having users give us feedback throughout the way, but then upstream, where you've got the visionary, the product manager, the UX designer, as they're going off and doing, research, creating personas and user journeys and empathy maps and all these sorts of things, that they are evangelizing it to the rest of the organization, meaning that the engineers, the QA people, the customer service people, what have you, everyone that's involved in delivering the product and supporting the product, have the same understanding of who the users are and their needs and their problems and so on, so that they can make intuitive decisions and do really what's in the best interest of the customer, as opposed to whatever their incentives are, or whatever's going on in their own silos. There's a number of different examples of how, when the incentives are misaligned, people will not act in the best interest of the company, the customers, or even themselves. Okay. And the last one is that, you have this principle of the least cost to validate. So anytime you have an idea for a product, for a feature, you want to think to yourself, how quickly can I determine whether or not this thing has legs? How quickly can I get something in front of the user, get some validation? What is the smallest version of this product or feature, the MVP, minimum viable product, or minimum viable feature, that we can get feedback on, to determine A, whether or not this thing is even valuable at all, or B, if it needs to be revised or changed in any way before you invest too much or take too long and deliver something that is, over-engineered and doesn't really solve a customer's problem at all. And so the way all this kind of fits together is what I call kind of the scientific method applied to product management or product development. And that is where you first really try to understand a problem domain, really try to understand, your users and what drives them and what they struggle with, and the problems you're trying to solve with your solutions. And then take a very sort of hypothesis, experimentation, data-driven approach to answering those questions. So you have an idea, come up with a test, come up with a way of gathering information, testing a hypothesis, and then trusting the data, whether or not it supports your beliefs or your opinions, and doing that not only with the initial product through the lean startup model or the MVP model, but with every single feature, every single change that you may make, everything where you're making strong assumptions that are not based in data, and just having it be a framework and a process that just, this is how we do things. So my whole consulting practice is about this. It's about driving product strategy and roadmaps that are based on that are customer driven, that are based on strong business drivers, having every feature built in with analytics and validation. So we say what's the shortest way to get this thing out into the market, collect data, analyze it, and then decide whether or not to invest more in that feature or change priorities and move on to something else. So that is my take on that. Thank you so much for watching, and please go to my website, www.voyagent.io, for more information. And as always, if you or anyone you know struggling with their product management framework or strategy, please reach out. I'm happy to help. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.